So, hey everybody, how you doing? It's Alex Moyle here from Nurture It. We've got Alan who's just given us a quick wave. This show is all about helping you build successful teams. And today we've got a fantastic guest because we are actually asking, can recruiters really influence the culture of the company? Logic would indicate that, well, actually, companies are made up of people and recruiters recruit the people, so surely they have a say. But is this the case? And so in order to discuss this, we've got Alan Walker. Alan Walker's got over 10 years in the recruitment industry. Alan has also worked for companies like Pearson. He spent the last sort of 4 or 5 years working within HR tech and partnering with organizations to help them with their talent acquisition strategies. And is currently the founder of Chat Talent. So spends his days speaking to people from across the talent spectrum. So hello, Alan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Alex. How are you?
Very good, thanks, very good. So excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem.
Do you want to give us just a quick overview of what you've been doing over the last couple of years that sort of enables you to sort of provide some guidance on how recruiters and talent acquisition teams can help with culture?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I wish I knew. So yeah, I've for the last 2 years, as well as running Chat Talent, which is an online community for HR and talent and recruitment people, anybody who's interested in building teams. That in itself has given me some fantastic learning, if I'm honest. Just the people we've had contributing, the content we've had coming through that, the webinars we've ran, etc. It's been fascinating. But I've also been running for the last 2 years a talent consultancy business called the Talent Finders. And we help organisations tackle a whole heap of people-related problems, you know, everything from sourcing talent at the front end, retaining talent at the back end, and all the stuff in the middle around developing, engaging, enthusing, and getting the very best out of talent. And we work across, you know, a mix of smaller businesses and some fairly large corporates as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. So today we're talking about culture and the impact recruiters can make. But as a starter for 10, when we talk about organizational culture, what does that mean for you?
I think that's really interesting, and I think you asking that question is one that organisations ask themselves every day, and probably don't come up with the right answer. I think for me, company culture is what it is. It's the way a company behaves. It's the way a company is. It's the ethos, the values of an organisation. I don't think it's something that you can write down and say, this is our culture. This is who we are. This is what we do. I think it's more around kind of living embodiment of people and their behaviours within an organisation.
Right. And when you work with organisations, what are the typical sort of cultural challenges that they're trying to overcome?
I think one is defining and understanding what their culture is. Beyond that, just writing it down and saying, "Oh, we ace. We're brilliant. We're great. We're really fast-paced. We're really innovative. We're really exciting." All the usual kind of platitudes that people bandy around to make their organisation sound great, and actually drilling down to what are their people like? You know, what are the differences between their best performing individuals and their underperforming people, and actually trying to bottle that up and understanding that. So, you know, what makes them tick? What are their career goals? What are their kind of personality traits, their behaviours? How are they wired up cognitively? That type of stuff is a lot of the work that we get involved in. So it's going beyond the kind of dream of, oh, we wish we were in Amazon, or we wish we had more beanbags or slides, or all that wishy-washy crap, excuse my language, and actually really getting under the hood of their people and understanding what differentiates the best from the also
rans. And so a lot of organizations, when they recruit, they have their sort of technical competencies they recruit against, but the mythical one is always cultural fit. How do organizations sort of go about defining cultural fit when they recruit?
Oh, that's good. Again, you know, I think that defining it is really hard and describing it accurately. The problem is the understanding it in the first place. And it's a moving feast as well. So what a company may see their culture as in their mind is probably a hell of a lot more nuanced as you move down and across an organization. So let's say you can do your EVP type stuff, the employer brand stuff. You can say we're awesome because we're fun, creative, innovative, ambitious, etc. But to really get into that true culture, it's often very different to what is being marketed and even what's being believed at kind of C-suite level. And also ensuring you hire people that can thrive in that culture is important. And around that that defining piece, and then being able to say this is us. I said before, it's about the behaviours and actions of its people in my mind, and to understand them. The first step for me is to really get under the hood, as I keep repeating, of the individuals in the business, but not just at a kind of homogenous. Let's look at the whole organisation and decide what we are, or we're an A, a B, or a C, but actually taking into account the different subcultures that exist in an organisation as well. Because what can be the culture of the overarching brand? When you go to finance in Bolivia, or sales in the US, or the accounts team in South Africa, the cultures there are all going to be very different.
Right. Okay.
So, see what I mean? So actually being able to hire for the right subculture is more important than trying to match necessarily to an overarching company culture in mind.
Yeah, and that could even be when you've got people that are in the same building, just sitting next to each other, and you've got the marketing team's culture, you've got the IT team's culture, and it's how you have the different layers for that. So
yeah, exactly.
In your experience, how are talent acquisition teams increasingly involved in the culture discussion? Obviously, they are part of what's bringing people in, and they're also part of often of sort of the recruitment marketing and the employer branding efforts. So what is it that you're seeing?
Yeah, I think for me, from a culture perspective, that recruitment team, that talent acquisition team, have got to help the business with that first. And there's some really cool technology available now where you can really do a deep dive of individuals and see how they're made up. You know, you can look at that cognitive stuff we talked about earlier. We can look at emotion. We can look at career aspirations, career drivers, behaviors, etc. And then you can slice and dice that in a million different ways. And that can start to really give you a feel for what have you got in the business at the moment from a people perspective. And then you slice it again and separate your underperformers from your high performers, and then you start to realize actually these are the people that do well in this environment, and this is why. This is what makes them tick. So a recruitment person can help their business do that benchmarking exercise in the first place, because it will benefit them in the long run, because they then can take that benchmark of what a good individual, forget about the technical skills for now, but what a good individual and a person looks like for that particular organization, and then they can hire against that benchmark. It's not about cloning people, but it's about getting people who have got a certain percentage of those kind of traits, behaviors, cognitive abilities, etc. That means there's a fair chance that they're going to fit into that organization.
Okay.
I think trying to assess culture fit based on an hour chat in a cafe or on a sofa in an interview room or wherever you might be doing that chat. A, it's as subjective as hell because human beings are not very good at doing that. And B, it's probably not enough time to do it even if they were. So actually allowing technology to come into the mix and using technology to help you with that is going to make, for me, a big difference. You can have a whole layer of objectivity to the process.
Okay, and I mean, you spend a lot of time looking at different tech products. What tech tools have you seen out there to help recruitment teams or recruiters assess that cultural fit? So you mentioned some of the tests that they might do or assessments. What sort of tools are you seeing out there?
There's a whole raft, and I don't want this to become an advert for a number of tech companies, particularly as I partner with some of them, so I'm not going to give any favoritism out here. But there's technology now, and a lot of the cool stuff is there's gamified stuff, there's game-based assessments, there's things that are more powerful in their results, but actually more fun in how they collect those results and how they assess individuals. So we use something at the moment that through a series of small individual games, first it measures that cognitive piece, the brain power, how smart are they, or how much potential do they have to learn. It then looks at their ability to interact with others, so that emotional intelligence bit. It looks at personality, or we call it social cohesion. And it also then starts to look at kind of career drivers, career aspirations. And it can do all that in 25 minutes of assessments or a series of individual games. And it's really engaging. You get something like a 95% completion rate, which is unusual for any application process.
So you actually use
but it's what it spits out.
Use that assessment through the application process as well as sort of in the initial benchmarking.
Both, yeah, absolutely. So we benchmark the people in the business at the moment, and then we use it to assess individuals applying for roles within that organisation as well. So you're using exactly the same methodology at both ends, and therefore kind of raising the chance of you getting an accurate result, in my mind.
Which profile of which skill set or discipline or department do you think responds best to that type of assessment? Because I think that type of thing lends itself really well to a sales environment where a lot of the technical discipline is actually very intangible because it's very relationship orientated.
It works excellently in two or three areas. Sales is a great one. Customer service as well, it works very well there. So a regular contact with customers, etc. Where the skills aren't your traditional, what you might class as technical skills. It's not that high a bar, but actually the people skills are really important there, and those intangibles you talked about. Where it's also great is apprentice hiring and graduate hiring, where the person coming through the door has a CV maybe with a particular qualification on it, but no work experience to fall back on, no relevance of kind of work history that's going to be all that meaningful. But you can actually look at the individual potential and compare them to leaders in the organisation, particularly things like cognition, for example, Alex. That doesn't change all that much. Once somebody gets to 19, 20, their cognitive power doesn't actually go up. If anything, it starts to wane. My memory, for starters, in the last couple of years or so, have gone right down the pan. But you start to cope with that through different coping mechanisms, don't you, as you get older? You find ways of dealing with those things.
Well, you end up retracing your steps, going, when I was standing.
Yeah, if somebody filmed me wandering around my house most days and say we keep walking into rooms, looking around, and then just walking out again, it's
my wife basically keeps telling me my name is not "Where's mine." Because I spend my life, where's my wallet? Where's my keys? So on the assessment piece, just one quick question. One of the things that often puts companies off is the cost of those assessment pieces, because in order for them to make money, they end up charging 30, 40 quid every time you do it, and you multiply that, and that becomes a big number. So how have you found companies manage the cost of those types of assessment tools?
I think with some of the new arrivals on the scene more recently, they've realised that actually for the tools to be truly effective, the organisations need to use them as much as possible, not just in isolated case of senior hires or senior management roles or very specific parts of the business, but they need to use it at scale and use it across the whole organisation so they can really get a deep understanding of their business and what it does. So some of the new stuff that's coming onto the market now, the price point has gone really low. And because they are much more technology based and they're not so kind of heavily supported by people having to have particular qualifications to be able to understand them or interpret them or feedback of them, the technology is in essence doing all of that work for you. The price point is able to drop quite drastically. The bits of tech we use, the assessment per candidate can be as low as £1, £2, and it delivers far better results than your traditional SHL and Myers-Briggs type stuff, and far broader as well, for less than a tenth of the price. And likewise, organisations normally will get an organisational-wide license for this type of stuff now. And for an organisation of 10,000 people, they might be paying £10 a head max.
Right. Okay.
So it depends on what they're going for on the full plethora, but it's much more doable, and the return on investment wipes that out instantly. Whereas you could argue with some of the more traditional tools, it might not, and sometimes it might not even offer any return on investment. Okay. So it's good that it's become more accessible, and as I said, there's lots of choice out there now as well. So there are various options.
Okay, and in terms, I mean, is there anything else that talent teams or recruitment teams can do to help influence the culture of the organisation?
I think it's. I think they can help influence it by the way they represent the organisation externally as well, and making sure they are the living embodiment of the culture they want the business to be to a certain extent, or the business wants it to be.
Right.
To a certain extent, that can help massively. I think helping the organisation understand that being honest about their culture in itself could be a very positive thing, and a positive thing externally, and that ultimately you will hire people who want to work in that environment rather than them wanting to work for some imaginary perceived culture. I think culture is interesting. Ultimately, businesses want to be high performing, cutting to the chase, don't they? They want to be successful. They want to make money. They want to be profitable. They want to do good if they're in the do-gooding business. But what that culture then looks like to deliver that will be different from organisation to organisation. You could have two businesses, in essence, doing very similar things, but their culture will be very different. And often that's because of the people in that business, not because somebody has described this is our culture. What they've then done early on, they've recruited people of a certain. They've recruited well, and they've recruited people of a certain ilk, certain nature, etc. Hopefully through science rather than luck. And they've managed to grow that culture out as they've got bigger and bigger. Some of the organisations that fail don't have a clue what their culture looks like, and really don't care. They just hire somebody who comes through the door who looks about right. And those are the ones that you see can't start to get a bit claggy and start to get a bit clogged up and slow in their growth, because not everybody's heading in the same direction for the same reasons and the same values. So.
Two examples that always stick with me. One is Bill Gates, who said that he was personally involved with the first 100 hires.
Yeah.
Because he sort of works on a concentric ring perspective, a tree ring perspective. So he knew he would hire the first 100 and they would then hire the next 10,000. And if he let a 9 into the business, then those 9s might hire 8s, and those 8s might hire 7s, and pretty quickly you get clagging, as you said. The other one is there's a slide share on, and I talk about this all the time. There's a slide share on for Netflix, and they've got an induction slide deck which is publicly available, and it basically talks about culture, and it also talks about, like, we're a hard place to work, and if you don't think you want to work that hard, let us know and we'll give you some money and you can leave.
Absolutely.
A lot of times it's not about having a culture where everyone has a great time, but it's about being clear that if you come here, you're expected to work hard.
Exactly.
Amazon again is a they will. I'm not sure they'll describe it like this, but they're a bit of a sweatshop. They know, they bring you in, they absolutely drive you at the red line and give you fantastic experience, and you either sink or swim. And that's the nature. But they're very clear on that when they recruit. And as a result of that, they hopefully get the performance that they want.
Exactly, and those are good examples of organisations who do genuinely understand their culture, and they are loud and proud about it, aren't they, in broadcasting that. And that in itself helps candidates either select themselves in or select themselves out. If that isn't for you, you're not going to apply for it. Organisations that don't know themselves so well, or make up what they believe their culture to be, or describe their culture as what they want it to be rather than what it truly is, and then actually don't interview or candidates in a way that helps them decide whether or not that person can fit into that culture, they're going to be struggling. So you've got to get, it's like Netflix, Amazon, etc. They've got to the point very quickly of understanding their culture and being able to communicate it and hire people against it. And you're right, Bill Gates' example of if you only hire A's, then you're going to be doing okay because they'll hire other A's. But as soon as you lower your standards, and actually there's an argument to say B's won't hire B's, they'll hire C's. Sometimes they'll even hire D's because the further down that ranking, however you define it, the more nervous people get and the more protectionist people are of their jobs. So they often don't hire people who are as good as them. Whereas A's want to be surrounded by other A's because they know actually they'll be more successful by surrounding themselves by other superstars.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it's counterintuitive in that, like, you've always, like, to progress, you've got to have someone ready to take over your job. So Alison's asked us a question, which is often internal talent teams want to do more marketing and employer branding stuff, but depend on an internal marketing team who have a job to do promoting the brand externally. So any advice on how you get more buy-in from the marketing team and get them to help you promoting the fact that you're a good place to work?
Yeah, I suppose you've got to explain to them and demonstrate to them what's in it for them. I see any kind of branding effort externally, whether it's employer brand or corporate brand or part of your sales effort, as all being one and the same thing. It's all representative of your organisation and drives people in your direction. So if you convince the marketing guys, look, this stuff needs doing. If you're not going to help us do it, we're going to do it. Either way, and we might not be on message. We might not do it quite as well as you, marketing team. So we'd really love your support to make sure we're consistent and we deliver the right experience for our candidates. That could be one starting point. I'm starting to see now many talent acquisition teams are doing this stuff themselves with the blessing of their organisation and with the blessing of the marketing teams. They're hiring marketeers into the recruitment teams to do this work for them, because it is, it's ultimately talking to the public, but actually it's more of a refined and defined message that you're delivering, and a very specific message about a very specific thing. Yeah. So actually having people who are specialists in this space is really important. I was talking to someone yesterday about the fact that the role of a recruiter is changing. We're moving away from your traditional sales role, for want of a better phrase. I don't like calling it sales, but many people still see recruitment as sales, and you're having to become a marketeer. You're having to become a brand expert. You're having to become a communications expert. You're having to become somebody who can nurture pools of talent and convince them to come and work for your organisation, and not in little spot isolated bits where you find a random candidate or you're lucky that somebody applies, but trying to do that on scale. Yeah. Especially as we're in an ultra competitive world now for talent. You've got to be out there constantly feeding the recruitment machine, so to speak, with people who want to work for your organisation. And you're not going to achieve that by having lots of one-to-one conversations with individuals about your organisation. You're going to do it through marketing, and I think that justifies having marketing people in recruitment.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of that is often internal recruitment teams will have their own website, and so therefore there's web work to be done. It's much more transactional. You've got a job that comes on, so you've got to help someone to write you good copy on the job advert. My advice on getting buy-in is that just don't move. You've got to get someone above to get marketing to make that time, because marketing is typically doing what they're told. And if you want to live off more than favors, you've got to get someone to give them the budget and the authorization to do that. And I think when I ran an internal recruitment team for a firm, it was about trying to make the business case for what value can you bring to the organization. The reason why marketing gets its money is because they say we're bringing this many leads, and this many leads will convert into this much money. It's about the business case of how much money will you save on agencies? How much money will you save on cost per hire? And it's building the business case for building those inbound leads in terms of talent is good. When it comes to sort of how you change your mindset, I mean, for me, sales and marketing is interchangeable, because the sale is sort of the end game. That's the goal. Yeah. And how you do that, the sales bit is how do you get commitment, and the marketing bit is how do you attract people and engage people to want to work their way through the process. And I think the best recruiters are as much marketeers as they are salespeople. And I love it when I speak to agency recruiters and they go, "Oh, I hate sales," and I go, "Right, but I love working jobs." And I go, "Well, when you work jobs, all you are is in sales, because you're ringing someone up going, 'I've got a job. Are you interested?' Mr. Client, I've got a candidate. Would you like to meet them?" That's all sales. The best bit of a marketing job is things like, "Hey, just want to let you know, like, you've got glasses. If those glasses break, I've got glasses here." And it's that marketing of just being that front of mind awareness, and it's how do you be that front of mind for candidates and clients, whereby at the moment of need, when someone goes, "I'm unhappy with my job," they give you a call.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then some people would think sales is a bad thing. For me, it's not about the sales, it's about the intent behind how you do it. And arguably, I would say a pushy sales guy trying to sell to you face to face is far less insidious than what Facebook do. When they track your clicks, they've got a team of people looking at brain psychology, making what they do the most addictive that they can make it. That's and you look at all the marketing documentation around psychology. How do you get people to click? How do you get people to respond? That's far more insidious than someone that's looking in front of you going, Alan, would you like to buy? Because at least you can walk away. But that's just a sales guy sort of trying to make his corner.
Yeah, I'm more of a marketing guy. I agree with you. I know what you're saying, absolutely. But it's the way of the world. It's the way things have gone now, isn't it? And it's very, very
everyone thinks
done right.
Everyone thinks marketing is this benign beast, and it's red, green, blue. Look at the lovely colours. Really, they're targeting human behaviour and how can they attract attention and stimulate a response. And they sit there and think about it. Where a sales guy's just like, all right, with me, I've got something. Do you want to buy it? They're a bit better than that. And it's so I think it's about, again, with all those things, it's good marketing, good sales, bad marketing, bad sales. It's about your intent behind it.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly.
One of the things we were going to talk about is that a lot of companies now have got initiatives to sort of drive more diversity and inclusion, to just make it easier for a wider range of people to work in the organization, but also be employed. What strategies have you seen companies use to achieve those goals?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think it's, for me, I spent 6 years working for a recruitment business who specialized in helping organizations attract more diverse talent. So I've kind of been there, got the t-shirt. But actually, one of the reasons I moved away from that world was that I think there was too much emphasis on diversity and not enough emphasis on inclusion. And I've changed tack over the years. I used to think that organizations should do everything possible to hire as much diverse talent and select diverse talent over non-diverse talent as possible. But I actually think that drives bad behaviors. I think what organizations should be doing is emphasizing inclusion in everything. So I believe, we shouldn't hire someone because they're diverse. We should be creating organizations that are inclusive. So where anyone who's got the right aptitude, the right skills, the right experience, regardless of their, the color of their skin, their gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, religion, whatever it might be, wants to apply for a role with that organization, can perform to the best of their ability in an interview, and if they are the right person, can be hired and ultimately can be successful in an organization. I think by doing that, you will create the environment that is the ultimate way to diversity, and how hiring or recruitment can support that. It's not easy, but it's doable. For me, the best organizations I've seen, the first thing you've got to do is ascertain the problem, if there actually is a problem, and then the actions in terms of how to solve those problems, that they're more straightforward. So, for example, if we're getting applications that applications that represent the demographic of a particular location or a profession that we're recruiting for? So, there's no point hoping, in all reality, that you'll have a 50-50 split of female to male candidates for a mechanical engineering job. That isn't reflective of the candidate pool that we're fishing from. An organisation cannot suddenly miraculously make half the candidate pool for mechanical engineering jobs female. It's not going to happen. There are less female mechanical engineers. It's fact. But if our application pool isn't representative of what that candidate pool actually looks like, why not? Is it because we're not broad enough in how we're attracting?
So what you're saying is to say, for example, if the demographic of mechanical engineers is 80% male and 20% female, you want that replicated in your application mix? Well,
if that would be the most inclusive way of doing things. If every organisation was doing that and mirroring that, that would be fair. Be inclusive, and that would create an environment that was as diverse as the candidate market that was out there, which is a fair reflection of society. I think what organisations can do to increase that split, so rather than being 80-20 or 90-10 in some cases, they can actually work at kind of grassroots levels to work with schools, work with colleges to to help underrepresented groups, be it females or ethnicity or whatever it might be, actually understand that careers in those particular fields are exciting, are interesting, are fun. But a company can't miraculously create candidates from scratch. They can influence the market, they can influence schools, they can influence colleges and universities, but they can't miraculously create a pool of candidates that is representative.
And not every company's got the ability to invest in schools programs. So I've got my wife's head of sixth form at a school, and they get people from companies like Atkins who actively encourage engagement because it's a girls' school to do that. I think some of the things I've read recently, which have been quite interesting, is around the language you use in your job advert. So when your job advert says you must have, you're much more likely to get a male response because they're more likely to go, yeah, that's good enough, I'll go for it. Where females are more likely to go, well, if I don't have that one of the four, I won't go for it. And so I haven't really put much thought into that, but I find that the science behind that quite interesting. And how
there's a whole piece, isn't there? There's language, there's imagery, there's the employee stories we're telling, who represents our business externally, who are seen as the kind of ambassadors of the business. And if those people don't appeal to the candidate market that you're trying to appeal to, or they only appeal to half of it, then you're losing out on a whole pool of talent that you want to bring into your organization. Let's say there is always 50-50 split male to female, and I know there's lots of other strands of diversity, but it's an easy one to discuss. If when you advertise you get 100 applicants and 90% of them are female and only 10% of them are male, something's not right there, is it? It's something has happened that has meant that males have decided I don't want to work for that organisation, or reverse.
Sometimes it's discipline based. So you look at primary school teachers. You'll get probably 8 female applications for 2 male. Nursing, midwifery. It's I guess it's going to take 15, 20, 30 years for that equality to come as more people try to promote all careers for everybody. Whereas you can't change people's perception of a career overnight.
No, you can't, and you can't. There's a whole load of mistakes that we've made as people over the last thousands of years, if you want to get really deep, but certainly over the last 200 years of kind of true employment, etc., and jobs as they exist in today's society, where we have excluded people, we have been biased, we've selected people for the wrong reasons for roles, and actually correcting those things, as you say, you can't do it overnight. But what the best organisations can do is draw a line in the sand and say, look, from this point forward, we are going to be fair. We're going to challenge our business. If we're not attracting the right pool of talent for the roles, we're going to look at why. We're going to do something about it.
Part of that is the environment that exists. So in a lot of sales environment, there might be banter, and banter lends itself to certain demographics than others. And sometimes it's so. I mean, I've come around to your school of thought, where I always thought diversity, for the sake of diversity, drove an awkwardness behavior because it didn't feel fair, where I think the emphasis on inclusion, which is, can we do our team nights out on an afternoon rather than always in a night out? Can we do events that don't involve lots of alcohol? And I was with a client recently who runs a 100-person business, and it's those type of thoughts that just make it easier for people to exist in that environment. And over time, that makes it easy. So Alan, we are out of time.
That went quickly.
Yeah, we could go on forever. I love talking about this stuff. But you've been a fantastic guest. Could you just tell everyone where can they find Alan if they want to know more about what you do and the things that you believe in?
Okay, well, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. I'd be very surprised if you didn't see my my noisy bearded face on LinkedIn on a fairly regular basis. Just search for Alan Walker and look for a handsome black and white photo of me. I'm on Twitter at alwalker78, and I'm at chattalent.com.
Fantastic. Well, Alan, you've been really brilliant guests. I've loved having you on. I said we could talk all day about it, and I'm sure our paths will cross again soon.
Been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye.